When it comes to comic books, the main thing that will always bring me back is the art. Seeing all of my favorite characters get reinterpreted, while at times jarring, can absolutely breathe life into a comic. Of course, the classical takes of these characters still hold up, and the different generations of artists make this list very interesting to make, as well as very debatable. There's also many different aspects of art to consider. Realism, detail, fluidity, panel layouts, and the like are all very important to art, but everyone has different opinions on what matters more to them. I mainly care about how recognizable, eye-catching, and well-proportioned the art is. Of course, you probably have different criteria, so remember, these are just my opinions on how good these artists are based on the aspects that I personally care about the most. With the immense number of comic book greats, I'll have to drop quite a few honorable mentions first. Many of these could absolutely make the top 10 list, and aside from maybe a few, it's probably the exact runner-ups to the ones in the top 10. The first honorable mention is Mark Bagley. Likely most well known for his long run on Ultimate Spider-Man with writer Brian Michael Bendis, my favorite art of Bagley's has to be his run on Amazing Spider-Man in the 90s. His way of drawing Carnage is very definitive in my mind, and his artwork in the 90s Spider-Man-Batman crossover also sticks out to me, and his art in Busiek's Trinity was fairly solid. Next up is Ryan Ottley. His art is very good and unique, which is a pretty good combo. While most know him for his amazing art on Invincible, I'm most familiar with his great art in Amazing Spider-Man. He's really good at showing impact and his cover game is top-notch. Dan Jurgens is the quintessential 90s Superman artist for me. From Death of Superman to Hunter Prey to Superman Blue to his modern work, his grasp on the character has always been clear. His art in Zero Hour is another standout, with his take on the Parallax Hal Jordan design probably being my favorite. He can also draw a pretty good Spidey. Well, Ben Reilly, I guess. Ed McGuinness is one of my favorite Superman artists. His work with Jeff Loeb on his Superman run and Superman Batman stand out, as well as their collaboration on Hulk, which is a case where it's honestly a run pretty much carried by the art. He's also much more versatile than people give him credit for, with runs like Spider-Man Deadpool showing much more accurately proportioned artwork. Steve Ditko, being the co-creator of Spider-Man and all, is probably not a surprising choice to any. His art was extremely innovative and still holds up to this day. The same goes for his art on Doctor Strange, which gave a blueprint that many cosmic comic artists still follow to this day. Ivan Reis is another fantastic artist who just barely didn't make the list. Quite possibly my favorite Green Lantern artist, with his art on Blackest Night being especially standout. His Superman art is also very solid. He draws a great Aquaman too. Phil Jimenez is another contender for the top 10, mainly held back by my lack of familiarity with his work. I'm basing his honorable mention mainly on his amazing art in Infinite Crisis. It takes a lot of skill and effort to draw a massive event like that, with dozens of characters on many of the pages, and he really knocked it out of the park. He draws a nice Spidey too. He even made the sketch in the 2002 film. Walt Simonson has a really cool art style. The blocky look he gives characters has always been pretty appealing to me, especially throughout his run on Thor. His Fantastic Four run was solid too, as was his run on Orion, especially his drawings of Darkseid. His own series, Ragnarok, also seems to have good art. John Buscema is another serious contender for the top 10. His work on the Avengers is possibly my favorite on the title. His Thor artwork and Surfer artwork are also fantastic. My favorite story of his has to be Silver Surfer Judgment Day. The depiction of Galactus and Mephisto's cosmic clash is simply epic. He also draws a great Captain America, Wolverine, and pretty much everybody. My next honorable mention is Mike Mignola, mainly known for his work on Hellboy, which, while not being a series I've read, seems to have a really cool and unique art style. He also drew the graphic novels Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom, Triumph, and Torment, one of my favorite single-issue works ever. With that being said, here are my top 10 favorite comic artists of all time. Each pick here was extremely tough, but after making them, I feel confident that this is my ranking. Number 10. Olivier Coipel has to be my favorite Thor artist of all time. His art on the Joe Michael Straczynski run is amazing, and the way he draws Thor is definitive in my mind, perfectly proportioned and detailed, with my only issue being that sometimes the mouths drawn look sort of wide. He can draw a great Captain America and Iron Man, as well as a solid Spider-Man. The intensity he can bring to a scene is great, with standout examples being Galactus' clash with Odin, Thor absolutely annihilating Iron Man, and Thor's battle with a voided out Sentry, as well as many more. He's done great work on ensemble stories too, particularly during House of M or Siege. For the latter, I always think of the panel of Sentry doing something that I probably cannot show on screen. If you know what I'm referring to, you know this is one of the most gruesome panels in all of mainstream comics. Number 9. Jack Kirby. God, putting Jack Kirby here feels so low. But that really speaks to his quality, if being on the low end of a top 10 seems disrespectful. When talking about innovative comic art styles, Jack Kirby is one of, if not the most influential comic artist, with him setting the standard for the in-house Marvel look, while also creating the Kirby Crackle, a staple of cosmic story since, as well as his very unique collage work. He really put Marvel in the comics game. As a genius co-creator of many characters, his art is featured all over the 60s Marvel titles, from Thor to Avengers to Fantastic Four and many more. Even earlier in his career in the 40s, he would help co-create Captain America, and later on, he would create the New Gods over at DC, allowing for more of that classic Kirby cosmic artwork. Number 8 is Gary Frank. To be honest, when making this list, I fully expected to put Gary Frank higher, possibly even up to number 6. His art feels like a really nice balance of being realistic and cartoonish. He's probably my second favorite Superman artist of all time, and his work on the character has been very consistent, and is also a perfect complement to Geoff Johns' writing. His art on characters like Captain Marvel and the Hulk is also pretty good, with his work on the latter showing some pretty good impact shots. He's also good at drawing big event comics. The obvious example here is Doomsday Clock, which is jam-packed with characters all drawn in great detail. Number 7 is John Byrne, one of my absolute favorite Superman artists. John Byrne was given the extremely tall task of redefining Superman for a new era, and his slightly more buffed up Superman really set the tone for this new era. Many of his Superman drawings have become iconic, and it's clear to see why. Almost every drawing stands out and shows the Man of Steel in his full glory, cutting no corners. His art on the Fantastic Four run was also quite standout, with the iconic cover of Gladiator holding up the Thing with the rest of the Fantastic Four knocked out always coming to mind. I think I prefer his art on X-Men to his Fantastic Four work though, with his time on the title encompassing major events like the Dark Phoenix saga and Days of Future Past. I think his ability to stand characters out that I mentioned earlier really helps with these team books, where you need to make each character feel important while having to draw a whole group. Also, he has this one cover of Symbiote Spider-Man, which just looks amazing, so just to add more to his placing on this list. Number 6 is John Romita Sr. As the de facto Spider-Man artist for years, the influence Romita Sr. made was clear, with most artists following him pretty much copying his style. During his run on Spider-Man, he redefined the character by slightly buffing him up, making Peter more handsome, and lightening the blues on his costume. During his time on the run, he delivered excellent covers and interiors, co-created Mary Jane, the Rhino, and the Kingpin, and worked on massive stories, like Amazing Spider-Man number 39, where Peter first learns the Goblin's identity, and the iconic Spider-Man No More storyline. Even after his time as the main interior artist ended, he would continue to draw covers, including issues like the 100th issue anniversary, the night Gwen Stacy died, and even later issues like the Peter MJ marriage one. Even outside of his run on Spider-Man, he would co-create the likes of Luke Cage and Wolverine. Romita Sr.'s art is practically perfect. Every line seems entirely intentional and perfectly executed, with my only complaints being that his art is somewhat repetitive and not the most dynamic. Number 5, Alex Ross. Alright, remember when I said that Gary Frank's art met a really good middle ground between being realistic and cartoonish? Well, Alex Ross's art pretty much meets the perfect middle ground. His art is just beautiful. This can be seen in something like Kingdom Come or Marvels, where practically every page is a masterpiece. This guy can draw everyone. Superman? Check. Batman? Sure. Spider-Man? You betcha. Even in Spider-Man 2. Captain America, Thor, or Hulk? Totally. Spectre? Yep. Iron Man? His art style really shines through on him. Pun intended. Alex Ross also worked on one of the greatest images in comic history, alongside one of the people remaining on this list, that being this mind-bending Crisis on Infinite Earth's wraparound cover. The amount of characters and detail is genuinely astonishing. With Ross, my only real complaint is that because of how incredible and time-consuming his art is, he rarely works on interior art, and unfortunately, is left to draw covers. But hey, what's a better way to catch a reader's eye than with Alex Ross's art anyways? Number 4, John Romita Jr. This may be a bit controversial, but Romita Jr.'s unique art style is the peak of blocky stylization to me, especially when inked and colored right. With shoes as big to fill as John Romita Sr.'s, it's no wonder his early art stuck to the House of Ideas status quo, and honestly, that stuff still really holds up to this day. Eventually, while working with Frank Miller on Daredevil, we really got to see his personal style, one that really suited the character, with a great depiction of a grimy setting to back it up. This style would perfectly transfer, and in my opinion, even grow during his return to Spider-Man, especially during the JMS era. He just gives Spidey this scaly, reflective look that I think looks great. Romita Jr. is also pretty good at making dynamic, fluid panels with nice impact shots. He's also taken on cosmic characters like Thor, and even drew the World War Hulk event, with the art peaking at the Hulk vs. Sentry battle near the end. In general, I think he's really good at handling Marvel's cast of characters, which is shown pretty well in the 2010 Avengers run. Since then, Romita Jr. would do some work at DC. While his Superman art is infamously wonky, his work on Batman is very solid. You also may recognize him for his art on the indie comic Kick-Ass. His return to Spidey has been a bit mixed, but when it looks good, it still looks really good. Overall, I think John Romita Jr.'s art, while polarizing to some, is near perfect to me. Number 3. George Perez. As foreshadowed before in my Alex Ross section, George Perez had to be included on this list. What an incredible artist. Just by dropping the names of the events this guy has worked on, you can tell how legendary he is. From Crisis on Infinite Earths to Infinity Gauntlet to JLA/Avengers, Perez worked incredibly hard to fit as many characters on a page as possible, and did the best job anyone could. He is just the ultimate team book artist. His spreads are gorgeous. You could spend an hour looking at them while barely scratching the surface of what's there. Just like Alex Ross, this guy has done extensive work with both of the big two. Avengers, Justice League, Teen Titans, Perez did them all, often concurrently. Outside of team books, Perez has been involved with reinventing characters multiple times, including rebooting Wonder Woman's whole mythology for post-Crisis and helping restart Superman in New 52. And when it comes to continuity-shifting events, not only did he draw the original Crisis, but he drew great covers for Infinite Crisis and drew the Final Crisis Legion of Three Worlds tie-in series. With all of that, as well as his long time at Marvel, including multiple Avengers runs and Hulk Future Imperfect, it's only fitting that he would draw JLA Avengers, possibly the best showing of just how much George Perez could put in one page. Perez passing last year was heartbreaking, but he will forever live on through his art. Number 2. Jim Lee. Jim Lee is taking up the runner-up spot on this list, and I think the reason's clear. Starting off with his work at Marvel, his X-Men work, in my opinion, is the greatest X-Men art there's ever been. And considering X-Men issue number 1 is the highest selling comic of all time, heavily in part to Jim Lee's 4 covers, I don't think I'm alone in thinking this. When thinking of Marvel in this era, other covers, like the one of Wolverine, Captain America, and Black Widow standing in formation, or the one of the X-Men all standing right in front of the reader, come to mind immediately. His art, filled with cross-hatching, greatly detailed, and extremely energetic, is still amazing to this day, though somehow I think this isn't even the peak of his career. While I'm not so familiar with his work at Image, aside from it looking cool from a surface look, his work at DC is what really confirms his number 2 spot for me. This is best shown with Batman Hush and Superman for Tomorrow. Both are my definitive and favorite takes on both characters, and I love how his For Tomorrow art manages to keep the detailed, typically moody style, and while at times he still does draw in that moodier way due to Azzarello's wonky writing, each time he gets a chance to draw a warmer, brighter page, it's just phenomenal. The matching images of Batman and Superman standing to view their respective cities is another one of my all-time favorite pieces of comic book art, and while it took 20 years, we finally got the Jim Lee Wonder Woman piece to complete the set. Even in times when the writing sucked, looking at you, All-Star Batman and Robin, Jim Lee's art was always a highlight to look forward to. His covers on Infinite Crisis were also phenomenal, and always complimented Perez's covers. And his covers on Trinity gave him another chance to draw the greatest depiction of the trio. His artwork for the New 52, including Justice League and Superman Unchained, as well as his Rebirth artwork, have also been pretty good, albeit not as great as his peak in the 2000s. But hey, for me, only one other artist has a peak that good, so it should be clear why Jim Lee holds my number 2 spot. Number 1. Todd McFarlane. As I've made pretty clear on this channel, Spider-Man is my favorite fictional character. With this in mind, I could probably just say Todd McFarlane is my favorite Spider-Man artist, and my placement of him would probably be understandable. But good lord did this guy know how to draw comics. For years, Spider-Man artists would rarely get past the Romita Sr. copycat style, but Todd was a real game changer, drawing him with buggy eyes, spiraling webs, and incredible poses. Spidey was always on the agile side, but under Todd's pen, you would be assured to see the most dynamic poses possible and just the definition of cool artwork. Spidey wasn't the only character Todd has drawn. His art on Hulk was solid, especially the iconic cover of Hulk's reflection in Wolverine's claws. Speaking of Wolverine, even though he was never one of Todd's focus characters, I always thought he drew a very good Logan, shown once again during his Spider-Man run. While he never worked much on Batman, his cover on Batman issue number 423 stands out as one of my favorite pieces of Batman art ever. Perfectly simplistic, yet eye-catching. Oh, and let's not forget that this guy is the co-creator of Venom. To this day, the only artist that I think has done as good a job with Venom is Mark Bagley, and it's a bit of a shame we didn't get to see him do more. While I'm not a big Spawn fan, particularly due to the early issues writing making it hard to get into, the art and designs look incredible. Spawn himself is pretty much a perfect encapsulation of that 90s style of artwork. I've always kind of seen it as a mesh of his Spidey and Batman artwork, with Todd being able to wrap Spawn with chains, like he would wrap Spidey with webs, and draw the most exaggerated capes known to mankind, while still looking badass. It's just a shame we haven't had a chance to see McFarlane draw a Spidey and Spawn crossover, with us only getting little teases and homages from covers, but man is the potential there. I could talk about Todd's art ad nauseum, but I'll cut myself off here and just say he's my goat. That was a lot to say. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Sorry for the lack of uploads for the past months, but I'll eventually be back with weekly uploads, I promise. Also, just because I like all of these artists for their artwork, it doesn't mean I think they're good people and I'm fine with any certain thing they've done. They're solely ranked here via artistic talent, and any comments about them is solely referring to such. That's all for this video. Peace out, have a good one.